Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be working on replacing the shifter bushings, the worn out shifter bushings with solid brass bushings. The reason why is the play in gear. So every time I'm driving, if I'm in third, you can definitely see the play in the gear. So sometimes there were times where I was changing gears and it grinded and it didn't go into gear. So this is a common issue with all high mileage Nissan 300ZXs, and we're going to be replacing it with solid brass bushings. I believe they range from $16 to $25. It's a very nice upgrade that doesn't cost too much money. First of all, we got to remove the bezel. There are two tabs here that mine doesn't have. As you can see, mine is completely broken off. So there are two screws here, two screws behind this panel, and then two clips at the bottom. Okay, so the radio bezel is off. I just got to take the connector off from here. Okay, so to take the the connector to the clock out, you have to press this tab in the middle and then squeeze it out. It's that easy. Okay, so once you remove the bezel, there are two more screws that holds this center console. So there's one more screw behind the cigarette lighter, under the cigarette lighter thing. Okay, so I believe I took all the screws out. It should come. This console should slide out towards the front of the car. So okay, yeah, just like this. Okay, so once you take it off, what you're going to do is you're going to go underneath. There are two connectors, one for the cigarette lighter and one for the power mirror switch. Take your time, don't rush. You don't want to break things because everything in this car is pretty expensive. So yeah, take your time and be patient when you're taking out the connectors. Now we can finally remove the center console away so we can get on to working on the shifter. So once we got the shifter exposed, it is held by 4 screws on each side. So once we take them out, then we can get on to the bushing. Okay, so I totally forgot that these are also 12 millimeter hex screws. So if you don't want to use a screwdriver, which I don't suggest because sometimes you can strip it if it's really tight, just use a socket and the ratchet, and you should be good to go. Okay, so now we're gonna take the shifter knob off first. It's a screw type. All right, so once you get that off, we're gonna pull out this rubber. No, it's a 2-piece, I believe. It's not torn on anything. It's a 2-piece, and you see this bolt here? It's a 12 millimeter bolt. Guys, this took me almost a day to take out the 2 bolts that you guys see here, one here and the other one here. So what happened was somebody put Loctite in it because they probably couldn't tighten the bolts because of the limited space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Home Depot and get some smaller bolts, maybe a 10 millimeter, and use a washer, and then install this shifter along with the new brass bushings. So for the next time, if somebody's planning to take it out, they won't have a hard time like me. So now we're going to take the last bolt out. It's a 12 millimeter bolt and a nut. So what you're going to do is use a open end wrench in one end to hold it, and the other end you can use a ratchet or a ratcheting spanner. Okay, so looking at it, I took the shifter off from the tripod. I didn't know it was like a 4-piece shifter, so I had a little bit hard time to figure out how to take it off. So anyway, once I took it off, I had to figure out a way to take this bushing out. So a lot of people suggested fire, hammer, whatsoever, but I decided to go ahead and use some sort of a bushing tool. I have this bushing tool laying around my garage. So what I did was I just put it inside and like this or like this, and screwed it out. Screwed this part and it was out. Now I just got to figure out a way to take the rest of the piece out. Maybe I can just use some sort of plier and a little bit of hammering. But yeah, it was not too hard. Took me about 10 minutes. So yeah, now then I'm gonna install the new bushings, the brass bushings, and then install it back. All right, so this is the short shifter kit. The previous owner installed. So in order to take it out from the tripod, you actually have to put a wrench in here and a vice grip, actually wrench. If you don't have a 20 millimeter wrench, you have to use a vice grip, and then unscrew this top part, and then you have 2 more pieces underneath. Let me show you. Okay, so okay, you take that out, then you take out the shifter assembly from the bottom of the tripod, and then you can lift up the housing. That's how actually this whole thing goes in. It's a little bit difficult, took me some time, but if you have some patience, you can definitely get it out. Okay, now about the bushings. This is a short shifter kit, so I'm not sure if the bushings were made for this one, but I had to take it to my local shop. They help me out a lot of times. If you have somebody like that who has a press, or if you have a press yourself, then that's fine. You can just use a press to put this in. I tried to use clamps, C-clamps, but they kept putting it the wrong way. It was, once I was inside a little bit, the other side was outside. So yeah, it was not aligned. So I'm going to install this shifter and let's see how it works. Okay, so I placed the gear shifter housing and I have to bolt all the screws. Here's what one thing I did. I went down to Home Depot and got some smaller bolts. The thread size is the same, but the head is no longer 10 millimeter, no longer 12 millimeters. It's now 11 millimeter, so I can fit a socket perfectly in there. I'm using a crowfoot wrench because there's no axis. And I used some lithium grease on every moving part inside the shifter, and I'm going to clean up this part and install everything back together. So I connected everything back. At first, when I bolted it down, I tightened it a little too much with the linkage arm at the bottom. So my shifter was extremely tight because it didn't have any room to move or rotate around the bushing. So I had to loosen it a little bit. Now my shifter shifts perfectly. Thankfully, the only thing wrong were the bushings. So now the shifter is tight. I'm not missing any gears. I'm not grinding. So yeah, on the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this car on a test drive on some of the back roads here in New York City, and you guys can see for yourself how this shifter performs. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.